separation for my health. I'm really good at waiting, but lately I've been waiting by myself. It sounded good on paper, but that's the reason why I had to leave. Surrounded by this vapor, I thought it was the air that's hard to breathe. Whoa, I guess I found a reason. Guess I found a reason. Whoa, I guess I found a reason. Guess I found a reason.
Happy Monday, everybody.
Yo.
Hot damn, man. We're back on that horse again. That horse is called a weak. It's a weak horse.
Yes.
The worst high horse of the week. Hello, everybody. Getting ready to do weird things
What's up,
here
folks?
in just a moment. Andrew, we got Justin, we got Brian.
Do we mention it? Do we say the thing? No, we don't.
Yes.
We just keep on
We
going.
got it.
It's a normal week.
Just a normal week. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Got some good stuff lined up here. Got the time codes going, recordings going. All right, well, how's everybody feeling?
Ready?
Pee good. You know, it was a nice little weekend, and then I got a COVID test this morning.
Oh, did you get the results
Went in
back?
and got my coves tested. No, 2 to 5 days, according to the LabCorp website.
Oh, okay.
What if you list your hobby as licking doorknobs?
Yeah, then they'll get back to me in 2 to 5 days because they that's their business. But no, it was easy. It was front of the nose, so rolled in. They just like
You
swabbed
weren't
the back
doing
of my
Brian's blockhead
tongue,
routine.
and that was it. No, I was hoping that it would be that because I asked them if I could record, and they were like, "Sure." So I recorded it, and then I'm like, if I'm gonna do that, it's so much more fun if I'm like in pain or it looks weird or like that's why I'm here. I'm trying to create content, guys.
Whatever,
and,
sicko.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Wow, here's this easy ass test," and I'm like, Jesus, don't I look like a dingling?
Yeah,
like
my
just
only
getting a
fans
super
aren't
easy-
gonna like this.
I know, right? But no, mostly I just wanted to do it just so people kind of could demystify it a little bit, and now that we're moving into a world where it's more asymptomatic people are going to be asked to take the test or want to take the test, I think that we should all just kind of understand it. Because there's no point of everybody screaming and yelling about testing if asymptomatic people aren't going to take it. That's kind of like the point we want to get to.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, let's see here. There's the three of you guys. All right. You guys want to start the show?
Ready?
Yep.
Let's do it.
All right, then I'll count you in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Adrian Main, joined by Brian Brushwood,
Hello.
Mr. Justin Robert Young,
Yo!
Mr. Bryce Castillo.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Gentlemen, I am wearing actually it's hard to tell, but I'm wearing my Blue Origin hat. I just got that. They've opened up their Blue Origin online merch store. And, in my interest is supporting all things related to space. One of the things I purchased. I know you can see it, that's their emblem is actually the feather. But I'm going to be wearing my space guy gear pretty nonstop pretty soon because, it's coming up in less than 10 days.
Isn't it a bunch of more Starlink satellites about to launch?
No.
Or the
no,
humans.
Brian. Big news. The crewed Dragon capsule is going up. The astronauts are already in quarantine for this mission.
Thank goodness.
Fooled
At
you
least
guys.
some of us
So
are
are we.
in quarantine.
Well, yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes. So that's due to launch on May 27th. And actually, there was, Brian, supposed to be a big Starlink launch. I think it was today, but there was weather, so they postponed it till after the Crew Dragon launch. So that's exciting. May 27th. This is going to be the first launch of Americans on board an American spacecraft since the shuttle. And actually, because of the way this works, they'll go up, they go to the International Space Station, and then when it lands, there's going to be a landing in the ocean. It will be the first time we've landed a craft in the ocean. We've done a splashdown landing since like almost 50 years.
Now, is that going to happen just because we know for sure that's pretty safe, or is that I guess if I were SpaceX, I would probably not want to do the flex of like a pad landing until we, already had that under our belt of sending humans up and bringing them back safely.
Exactly. That was initially the Dragon 2 capsule was going to do a propulsive landing, which was going to use its engines to go land. And then in working with NASA, they realized that NASA's like, hey, we've got a lot of history of parachutes. We know a ton about parachutes. We know reliability of parachutes. This is how we've been returning people either on a runway like the space shuttle or with parachutes. And it kind of comes down to like how much technology do you want to try to attempt at? How much do you want to try to do? And I think it came down to pragmatically, they're like, we'll use parachutes because they've been using those on the regular Dragon capsule. And so SpaceX has a lot of experience with that. So it ended up being, I think, a pragmatic decision.
Probably not a bad symbolic move either. If I could think of worse things than this particular launch having an ending that looks a lot thematically like what we remember from the Apollo missions or what have you. I mean, I don't know how much better it is to add any amount of complexity for, a rocket-assisted landing.
Yeah, I think on one hand, it does feel like, well, great, we're still doing it the way we did 60 years ago. The other hand, like that way worked really well, and it's very reliable. And, save the propulsive landing for Starship. Save it for, the next generation system where, it's done from the ground up.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, the two astronauts that are going up, they're old hands, veterans. They're like an old married couple. They're grumpy old men.
Yeah, Ed Behnke and the other gentleman escapes me for the moment. These guys are experienced astronauts. And here's the good news: they're all older than us. So I'm saying there's a chance. That's one of the things that's interesting. When you look at who a lot of the test pilots they've used.
Oh, you mean there's a chance for us to eventually go up as well?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought you were saying like there's a chance they won't screw it up because, as we know, if we did it, it would be a disaster.
Well, that's true too. That is certainly true too. Like, one of us, I'm not going to name names, as a kid tried to bring firecrackers through an airport, security detector. So I don't know if he should be trusted to go on a spacecraft.
So the 27th, just what, 1 week, 2 weeks?
Yeah. I mean, it's, 9 days away.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's also, they're discouraging people from actually going to go watch the launch. We'll see. Florida's been open up a bit, so I think you're going to get some crowds there, but they're still saying, hey, let's not pack everybody together. But I think we're going to have excellent coverage. SpaceX's coverage of these events is really extremely well done. So, I'm going to probably be live streaming when this is happening and, chattering on and on about it when they do the launch, because it's an exciting moment. It's really an exciting moment. It's a big step back into, space for us. And also because it's SpaceX and this platform, it means that the cost of this will be substantially lower for other organizations and enterprises that want to try to do this. Like, I think they've already got some like private launch partners lined up, people who want to go, do this. We've seen there's been advertising now for, like, NASA came out actually with that a sheet that says the breakdown of what it costs to visit the International Space Station.
What would it be a stretch to call this the most luxurious space launch in human history? Because little things like the amount of space around, the amount of comfort of the chairs, the amount of automated systems that you don't have to beep the buttons yourself or whatever. I mean, they're kind of getting to ride the Lexus to space, right?
Oh yeah, it's designed to seat 7, and so it's gonna just be like 2 in there. Like I don't know if they get to choose their own seats or something. Like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna lay across the back row here, guys.
Has anyone called dibs? Do we know what the dibs situation is?
Yes. Yeah. So if you haven't seen the interiors of the crew capsule, it's neat to take a look at because it feels more like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek than the right stuff. It's not a bunch of like dials and stuff like this and steel panels and things like manuals. It's all touch screens. It's all gleaming. It's all, just this very futuristic interior. Which,
I mean, in a weird way, that has to, I would imagine that it would sort of affect my excitement, where it's just like, I don't know. You think about, you watch The Aviator and you picture, Howard Hughes flying one of the flyest prototypes ever, and then it's just like, well, I got on a technically even bigger and faster ship when I took that Southwest Airlines flight. Like it's a curious thing to me to be like. I mean, on the one hand, you have to be excited for the sheer luxury and simplicity of your experience, but also you have to take a moment to pause to think about the giants upon whose shoulders you're riding right now.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the idea of SpaceX versus NASA sort of kind of thoughts is really not helpful, because so much of this is made possible because of, we've spent billions of dollars over the decades in space flight, space research, etc., that now SpaceX, Blue Origin, everybody gets to benefit from and build on top of, that's, but it all kind of, we got there because some crazy people decades and decades ago spent a lot of late nights drinking coffee trying to solve problems. Some very, very brave people hopped on board these things. And, over time, we kind of, can figure out what some of the solved problems are. We're looking at the two astronauts inside of there testing the control panels, and they're very slick looking SpaceX flight suits, by the way.
I'm gonna guess not only the most luxurious ride, but also like the dopest uniforms. I mean, come on, come on.
Yeah.
Well, this is the first glimpse into the future. This is the first glimpse into a world in which these kind of things are going to be far more not only prevalent, but also, as Andrew said, cheaper for, to get NASA. I mean, this is really what we have kind of wanted in all the times that we've talked about SpaceX. The biggest thing that we kind of were always working toward was this idea that NASA could get back to letting exploration be the mission and not manufacturing. And now that we have gotten to a point where they can send humans, like that's it. That's the full menu. That's what you want for NASA to have. And it's great that SpaceX is there, and hopefully we continue to get even more options.
Yeah, that's what's really exciting, because we have Blue Origin, Sierra Nevada, which they were building the sort of like kind of the looked like sort of the mini space shuttle, which I think they're going to be doing for cargo. And that's just an exciting thing to think about, getting to the point where we have multiple launch providers doing that. And then if Starship gets to work, be very cool. Look at the Sierra Nevada thing. It's a very cool looking thing. Of course, that's kind of where the Bionic Man had his problem in, and why he had to have his powers. But you look at the design of it. Remember the opening of the Bionic Man? They actually showed, there was the footage from an actual, like it was the dinosaur, which was this, this early lifting body spacecraft prototype. And that was a thing that spiraled out of control and crashed.
Oh, I totally thought it was one of the X series of high altitude craft. I didn't realize it was that one.
Yeah. I think that's what Buck Rogers was in too. So listen, it doesn't bode well for the success of a mission, but really cool if you're on TV series to hop on board one of those early prototypps.
We can get 2 men for the cheap price of only $6 million.
Yeah, $6 million, man.
We're going to be thrilled.
Yeah, it's called Grandma's hip replacement now.
Yeah.
Hey, Bryce, you mentioned you had some stories too.
Yeah, is anybody hungry? Right, I know we're in the middle of the show right now, and so maybe this is a little bit, but I'm kind of feeling a little peckish.
I just had some pizza, 2 slices.
Yeah, I just had a little bit of a couple of hard-boiled eggs, but I'm all right.
I had some eggs. I'm getting up on it. Probably in the next couple hours, I'll be a little hungry for a snack.
Pizza sounds like a good idea. I'm gonna open up a Grubhub and maybe order myself a pizza here. How about that?
Wow, that
Okay,
seem
cool.
really unprofessional. We're in the middle of a show,
I
Bryce.
know.
Like,
I mean, unless
this is,
he's ordering actual grubs and they're in a hub and he's calling it
Yeah.
a pizza, in which case it's very on
yeah.
brand.
Hey,
This is a horrifyingly
1998 called.
boring. Yeah, this is so
mhm.
bad, Bryce. Why
Hey,
are
Brian,
you jackknifing the show?
Well, just I want to get a pizza, but I want to get like a good one, right? You don't want to get like the big brands because I'm using the apps. They're expensive, right? But it looks like there's one here, Pasquale's Pizza and Wings. You guys ever hear of this? Pasquale's Pizza and Wings.
I heard the word wings. Good enough for me.
You guys want some wings?
yeah.
All right, here I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a pepperoni pizza and some buffalo wings coming in.
Done.
My driver has texted me a picture of the food, but there's an issue. This doesn't seem to be. I thought this was kind of getting a local thing.
Would you say that a musical, that maybe there's a promise of fun and frivolity and music with this particular order, Bryce?
It appears that I'm gonna get a lot. I would expect maybe a little fun and games with apparently where they've sourced this from. So
Bryce, if you were to react to this order using only movements of your eyes, how would you react to this order?
it would be like this.
That's good pizza. That's great pizza.
Wait a minute. Is this a Chuckie Cheese thing? Have they rebranded? Are they selling Chuckie Cheese through Grubhub?
So Chuckie Cheese is one of the many companies right now doing virtual kitchens with a new brand, Pasquale's Pizza and Wings. And so they are available nationwide wherever you get Chuckie Cheeses from. But if you go on Grubhub or DoorDash or these things, you will, instead of seeing Chuckie Cheese, you will see Pasquale's Pizzas and Wings, as one Philadelphia orderer user was shocked to find out.
Bryce, do you have the corporate statement? The corporate statement was amazing because very obviously this is a situation where Chuck E. Cheese is thought of as the destination that children want to go to, and it's not because their pizza is great, it's because your kids are there that you have to order it. So nobody wants to order the pizza at home, right? Even parents, they can't satiate their kids with this pizza at home. So they got to figure out something to do with these kitchens, something to do with these workers, but they also don't want to crap on their menu.
Yes.
So listen to just the gymnastics that are done in this statement.
Pasquale's Pizza and Wings, named after another favorite member of Munch's make-believe band, shares kitchen space with the Chuck E. Cheese restaurant, ensuring high-quality, fresh ingredients. Pasquale's Pizza and Wings' recipes use fresh homemade pizza dough, just like Chuck E. Cheese, but it is a different pizza that features a thicker crust and extra sauce, giving consumers a more flavorful, more premium pizza experience. While Pasquale's Pizzas and Wings recipes are currently only available for delivery, select items might be added to the Chuck E. Cheese menu in the future. they can finally make them good.
I have no problem with this at all. Like we ordered from a local, like there's a new pizza place open up, a local one. There's only like 2 or 3 of them, whatever. Yesterday, I waited. It took them an hour longer to deliver than it should have taken. I got the pizzas, one of those big pizzas, like, oh, it's New York style. The sauce was so watery and stuff. It was okay, but I'm like, I preferred my Papa John's or my Domino's, and it all comes down to if Chuck E. Cheese wants to sell pizzas under another name. If you get the pizza and you like the pizza, great.
Yeah. And I don't know for sure whether or not Chuck E. Cheese is a top-down run thing or if they franchise out, but look, there's a lot of jobs. We can make jokes about like, Chuck E. Cheese is selling stuff, out of their kitchen, but like, look, there's a lot of people that work there. Nobody wants to see them get fired. So I'm fine with them doing it. I think it's a great idea. I would almost hope that they get more experimental. I think it's funny that they have to write a statement saying like, no, this is premium. Not that the other stuff was bad. Like, this is good though, but this could be good on Chuck E. Cheese's menu too. But I think it's fine. I love the idea of headless restaurants that are just running out of kitchens. I think you should do more of it. The more options I get on those apps, the better, the happier I am.
Yeah, did you guys fire up your indignance outrage engines when there was some pranksters that created ghost kitchens that were just microwaving, out of the box meals? Because I know the point is like, hey man, I'm spending $30 and getting it delivered, and this is a $4 lasagna that from a hotel or whatever.
That sounds frustrating.
I weirdly had no problem with it at all, none whatsoever.
Yeah, and also, if you've worked in food service or had friends there, like some of these places, you go back in the kitchen and you see where the particularly like a place like an Applebee's or Fridays. Guess what, folks? It's coming out of a freezer, going into a microwave, then onto your table. And I think we conceptually get the whole idea. Like, oh, I thought I thought some poorly underpaid person slaved hours to make this food. I'm upset. I think that. I think that one of the things exciting about more of the headless kitchens or the cloud kitchens is that food delivery, the problem with food delivery right now is there's all these articles about how much money like Uber Eats has lost and Grubhub's lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And there's a great article out about a guy doing pizza arbitrage because his friend who had a pizza place that wasn't listed, but like DoorDash or somebody like this was selling his pizzas, but for $10 cheaper than he was selling them for, because apparently what they were doing was a test run of getting how many orders they could get for him, then go at him and say, look what we're doing. And so what he just started doing was buying his own pizzas, putting dough in there, to see how long it would run. But I think a thing that could be a big impactful is to think about portion size changing. Right now, when you order from a restaurant, it's sort of the idea is that you order a portion that's going to come to your table. And I'm willing to pay more for a bigger thing delivered to my house so that I have food for several days.
Oh, it'll last a little while.
And I think that would be, I think because then you're willing to pay more because the value proposition. Like we order from Denny's every week because like we're friends with the staff there and whatnot. And Denny's now will do grocery delivery too. Like we can order like cold cuts and stuff like that, which for the most part has been great. Sometimes we got some stuff that's expired, not so great. But I like the idea though. Like order these other things. So when you spend $70-$80 on food, you're getting enough to last you a long while. You don't have that like. I hate ordering. Like I hate ordering from some place. You spend like $50 and you get like 2 entrees and you're done. And you're like, yeah, I'm still hungry.
Especially with like the delivery fees on top and processing and tips. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to.
I think that I think that there's a ton of options here. Like and maybe now is the point where restaurants will be more into the idea of taking chances on stuff. But I think, normalizing kind of like double portions or portioned out foods where you're getting like a set of things that are pre-portioned out for 3 meals. And so now you're maximizing that delivery. I've long wanted to have some kind of restaurant subscription for restaurants that Ashley and I would go to a fair amount of time where we could maybe get a little bit more as long as, we're paying upfront for what we would get, and the restaurant can understand that there's X amount of money coming in. I think we are ripe on all fronts for figuring out how we can maximize kitchens and maximize physical real estate, because one of the things I think that is going to come out of here, whether we like it or not, is that the virtual genie is out of the bottle. This is kind of like when you realized you could download an album on Napster, whether or not you think it's right and whether or not you think it's good. The technology is validated now, and we see that we can live off it. And it is just going to change things forever.
Yeah.
Was it Napster? Let me look this up. Sounds cool. I'm gonna try this.
No, it's down now. You have to get Grokster or
LimeWire.
Okay.
LimeWire. Yeah.
Downloader with an R. There are a few more here that I found while looking up the story. Do you guys know Neighborhood Wings? Who do you think Neighborhood Wings is?
I have thoughts. Okay, go ahead. Please tell me these are not homemade wings, because homemade wings are all garbage. As we know, true wings have to be in a deep fryer that's not been cleaned in a month.
Okay. Well, Neighborhood Wings, I guess, is the name of another one of these headless restaurants. What do you think the the big chain.
Oh, so
it's a
wait,
part
no.
of.
So somebody is now selling wings out of a place that wouldn't normally sell wings.
You would get wings at this place.
Is that what we're going for here?
The wings are on the
Okay.
menu here.
Stringtown
KFC?
Road, Georgeville Square Drive. Probably not somebody's house. Probably Domino's?
Good guess. Domino's. Okay. Not it, but a good guess.
KFC,
KFC. All right, that's closer. Justin, you got a final guess?
Popeyes.
Hooters.
No, that neighborhood wings is 2020 Stringtown Road is Applebee's.
Whoa.
Applebee's.
I mean, I would be more interested in their other headless concept, just rib tibs.
You mentioned
Stringtown Road sounds made up.
you mentioned Hooters. Hooters does run a virtual kitchen. Do you know the name of their virtual kitchen?
Just wings and nothing else. Wings without responsibility. Fly free on these wings. They have no baggage with them.
Okay, it's a little
Wings
conceptual.
from an old man who delivers them with a twinkle in his eye and a grizzled spirit. Wings.
We're looking for Hootie's Burger Bar.
Oh God.
Hootie's Burger Bar, a virtual kitchen inside of Hooters. Not even don't even
Blowfish
get
unavailable.
wings.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm for all of this. Whatever keeps that kitchen humming, whatever keeps everybody being able to make money delivering it. Like, I think that's such a smart idea. And also, I just hope it means that there's more different kinds of stuff. Like the better that we're able to order this, and then there's the whole next level of trying to figure out, optimizing price and delivery time and how to maximize your money there. I think it's a great idea.
Here's a way to look at it is that in the real world, if you open up a restaurant, you call it a name like, I'm going to be, the Center Pizzeria, you're stuck with that. Okay. And let's say maybe you have really good food or you're under new management, the quality's improved, but people still think you're the same thing. Or maybe you have an item, maybe you make a really good pasta too, but nobody ever goes there for your pasta. So, and you can't, it's how do you're like, well, and we'll get one of those like blow up little guys that wave in the wind and say, and pasta too. You're stuck, in the online world. We can change avatars and their names in a minute. We can change our brand as quickly as we want. So giving brick and mortar and even franchises the ability to say, hey, here's a different version of what you can do. And so many of the restaurants that we go to are actually part of these conglomerates where the food supplies come from the same places.
Yeah, like
you look at
Cargill. Cargill provides all of the food for pretty much everyone. It's like, what are we running today? Oh, we're running KFC. All right, so that means set the machines to this depth of thickness, set the nuggets to this much, make sure to run this recipe. Oh, wait, it's the end of the week. Now we're running McDonald's. Okay, set the machines to this, and then off they go.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a guy whose name isn't he probably should be more famous than this, is Paul Fleming. And he's the guy who created a lot of these, big restaurants that you're familiar with, like, PF Chang's. It's Paul Fleming, and a guy Chang was like Paul Fleming, Fleming Steakhouse. I think he started Outback. And you start looking at Paul Fleming and like all of the different sort of places that he started, you realize this guy is like, a lot of these start from one person, says, oh, what if we specialize on this? What if we focus on this?
Wow. Yeah. That's super cool. So keep an eye out.
That's so funny. It's so funny that's the case. And yeah, I think the idea that restaurants are able to kind of like SEO optimize, especially considering where the apps are now, because restaurants will just like be on an app and then be gone because they'll go exclusive on some other app. So you're used to things kind of being there, going away, showing up. Like it really does give you the opportunity that if Hootie's Burger Bar doesn't resonate, then you could just say best damn Texas burger barn. And if people want to buy from that more, then that can work. But it doesn't mean that they don't have to get new signs at the cost of maybe designing a new logo. They can, in the minds of this gigantic exploding consumer base, just be a different company, which is insane.
Which, by the way, I don't think is an overstatement to say that's the hard part. Like the actual delivery of foodstuffs and adding of spices or whatever, as much as we fetishize as consumers that's the real magic. It's the real magic is the storytelling that goes into launching a brand.
Yeah.
Well, and that's and specifically for restaurants, you know, your real estate is so expensive, and you want to make sure that there is a consistency. So it's like, you know, you're very rarely going to go from like, all right, we're a tapas place, but we have this pasta dish that people really like, and people really, really like that as an appetizer. Boy, they would have to love it as an appetizer for you to say, hell, we should just do all pasta stuff, right? Like that's not going to be something that usually happens in that scenario. But in this one, if you just see, oh crap, no one's getting our tapas, they're only getting the pasta appetizer, you could just the next day be like, where are the pasta men? Come buy our pasta. And it's ready to roll.
And I think part of why this Chuckie Cheese story blew up is there's weird branding around it. Like we looked at the
rats. Is that the problem? The fact that they're constantly advertising how many rats are at their establishment?
They're not even acknowledging the music. What is it? The music band extended universe. There's a whole wiki about the entire universe.
Do you know why they had the rat?
If I recall correctly, it was some story where they ordered a thing and it looked awful. And they just were like, that looks more like a rat. And they're like, I guess we roll with it being a rat.
It was Nolan Bushnell. Was it some like, you know, because he was at while running Atari, had the idea of like, let's have our own pizza place with video games. Maybe people wait for pizzas that kids can play video games, and we'll have a mascot because he saw the Disney Tiki Hut with it. He said, my guys could build that, and he goes to this costume trade show and he sees a costume, says, oh, this is perfect, sends it back to the R&D guys, and calls them up a couple weeks later, goes, hey, how's it coming? How's the animatronic coming? Like, oh yeah, the rat's coming along great, but marketing wants to talk to you about why you chose a rat. He goes, rat? I thought I bought a fox because he was going to be like Fox's, Fun Time Pizza or something. They're like, no, you sent us a rat costume. He's like, oh, okay. And so then the branding people are like, well, we think we figured out, like, we have a name that has 2 smiles, or 3 smiles. It's Chuckie Cheese. And he says, I love it. So it was the trying to solve the branding disaster when Nolan Bushnell sends you a rat costume.
Man,
that's so funny.
Not for nothing. That sounds like an apocryphal made up after the fact thing, but it's like all 3 of our children, we chose their names because either in the long form or in the short form, it tricks you into saying their name with a smile. Callie, Josie, Penny, Calliope, Josephine, Penelope.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's cool. That's beautiful.
But I think part of why this is also being a story is you have to, in terms of, like, we're talking about the branding, right? Like, you have to sell this to people, right? We looked at the favorite page for Hooties and it says, like, this is a virtual kitchen for Hooters. I think I would certainly feel confused if I bought a pizza thinking it's Pasquale's, a local place. And, like, for the Philadelphia woman who ordered pizza, like, there is a pizza place called Pasquale's that is a local place. And it comes in a Chuckie Cheese box. I'm going to go, what the hell is going on here? Why did
tokens. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know. I would feel, would you feel at least a little taken advantage of, especially now when, like, a lot of the apps are like, if you order local, you get we're trying to help local, save local.
It would definitely be a mistake to surprise anyone with the Chuckie Cheese branded box, but it would be fairly affordable to have it be a neutral box. And it's like, man, all I know is I want Pasquale's, and it showed up faster than anyone else, and it sure was pizza. Like, that seems fine.
Yeah, the support local thing, to me, there's a difference between me having something mail ordered from out of town versus Place A and Place B. Place A has 8 employees who all live in my community. Place B has 8 employees who all live in my community. Place A, 8% of the profits go somewhere else. Place B, they're not as much efficiently run, so 2% of the profit goes to somebody who lives here. And it's like, I'm keeping people employed who work here.
Also, look, Chuckie Cheese is a franchise. So I'm looking it up here. It takes a little over $1 million to $2 million to just get the franchise, right? And then another million in liquid assets to run it. Like, this is a local business. It's a local business with a national brand, but that doesn't mean that there's not somebody in your neighborhood or reasonably in your neighborhood regionally that is running these things. And like the guy who works at the kitchen in Chuckie Cheese, there ain't no difference between him and the guy who works at the local pizzeria. So I'm fine with it, mostly because I just want people to have jobs. It doesn't matter to me where the ownership is on this.
Not to pour stereotypes, I'd argue chances are the guy working at the local one may be paid under the table and possibly related to the owner.
Yeah, right.
Yes, he's 12. We get it.
We'll work for tokens.
But also, like, worth noting, I think you could make a case that the pizza you receive under these new faux, I'll use air quotes when I say faux brand names, is a factually superior experience because it allows them to deviate from the recipes that were designed to maximize output and last the longest under heat lamps or whatever, but also two pizzas, let's say they're perfectly identical, just knowing that one is a Chuckie Cheese is going to physically cause you to enjoy that one less. So it's like they're literally improving the pizza by bothering to come up with another name for it.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I landed. It's like, if you're gonna do it, you can't let people know. Or if the whole point is this, we're using a different name, then yeah, it can't come in a Chuckie Cheese bag and it can't come in a Chuckie Cheese box. And I don't know what you do for the drivers. The drivers probably don't care, but
I think you could, if it would be a bit of a more delicate dance, but let's say it came and all that stuff, but maybe there was like a Post-it note over it, that like, this was made to you by Chad, Edgar, Susan, and Thomas, second year sophomores at whatever place.
Charles E. Cheeseman.
Like we're using this kitchen. We're so thrilled that we're somehow able to make you like I don't care. Like tell me a story that involves maximum truth, and the truth is we're using the Chuckie Cheese kitchen, but throw some character on it. Let me know why I should dig it, and it's like all of a sudden I could feel super good about it, even if it's roughly the same quality.
Yeah, I think a lot of this touches on a book that, Brian, you recommended and I read, which I loved, which is Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. And he talks about kind of bullshit. You have to have a certain amount of bullshit, which creates this, makes people like a thing.
Yeah. Or at least gets them to recategorize the type of experience that they're having from it.
I don't know. I just think about when I'm using those apps and I'm ordering stuff, I tend to not want to order from big, even if it's a franchise, even if it's whatever, just partly because of the cost, the markup on that stuff. So
because you're paying for the branding and the name and the and shareholders
and just the action of doing it, right? Like, I don't mind going to Taco Bell myself, but if I order tacos from a place and they're definitely Taco Bell tacos, I would be like, well, I could have just gone and picked those up and saved the $20 of all of the stuff on top of it.
I paid like almost $50 last night for one pizza from a local place, and like, it wasn't bad, but I'm like, man, if I'd ordered from Domino's or whatever, I would have had like 3 different pizzas, and my girlfriend would have got her barbecue pizza, I would have got my thing, I would have got this, and so it varies, like.
For sure.
Yeah, ultimately, I think it's up to you and your own habits. I just hope there's enough action to go around, because these restaurants are definitely hurting.
Do we have time for one more thing? I got an interesting thing. I know you guys already saw this. You're big Idol heads. You love American Idol. You all saw this.
Love it. Yeah,
I thought you were
time.
saying we were Idol heads. Like there's nothing going on upstairs, and I'm like, can't agree more.
We're
big
stupid
Idol heads. Just
Steamboat Willie. Steamboat Willie is playing through my head.
I'm folding proteins. I'm doing the pipe animation.
Wow.
Well, your words, not mine. So
flying toasters.
So last night on the season finale of American Idol, Katy Perry performed a new song from her new album, Daisies, and we're looking at the video here.
Of actual fans on their phones
Yeah,
at
like
home.
like a Twitter fire hose that was basically kind of aligned to, you know, what you would expect to hear live.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because I know I've seen some videos. I know a long time ago, maybe even on the show, I showed some of the really cool real time video effects that some of the research groups in Japan are doing with TV stuff, and I think they could definitely do something very similar to that if you set it up right and you figure out how all that works. You know, it's a big,
You know,
complicated thing.
you could also, we've seen sort of middle ground where like, you know, Christopher Titus did his comedy special where I think he had maybe 10 people in the room, just enough to give some kind of feedback to where he was landing or whatever. I don't know that I would mind it if I knew for a fact that there were 10 people there, but there was a filter being run that would interpolate those reactions to roughly simulate the sound of 150 people or whatever, you know, where it's like jokes that land and 9 out of the 10 people are laughing. You get the sound of 140, complete with some people kind of clapping and so on. I think we could get used to that.
I realized one day I had this sort of epiphany, or somebody said, "Do you watch this show?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Oh yeah, because they have a laugh track." Like I don't laugh. Like no, I haven't watched a sitcom with a laugh track in probably like 10 years. And anytime somebody recommends a show to me, and they don't use laugh tracks as much anymore, but that's just always been my thing. Is like anytime they have to go in there to make that stuff. You listen to the shows with laugh tracks, without the laugh tracks, you realize how unfunny they are. There's a whole article too about the guy who invented the laugh track, like the whole machine that did this, and the applause thing. It's fascinating because he had they had these like live shows, and he built this machine, and they would pay him to show up there with this thing and plug it in the sound system and press the different keys for that. And it was like this big, huge secret, you know, sort of technology.
Oh wow! So they were doing it live, like they were.
Yeah.
He was hitting the laugh buttons in the room. That's crazy. I always thought it was post production.
Because they had a thing where they had like the story was, I forget like what, some talk show, whatever, was they had a guy who was doing some sort of kind of slightly off color kind of humor. He was like a Catskill comedian or something like this. And the audience laughter was tremendous. They couldn't use the bit on the show, but they recorded the audio of the laughter. And like that was used for a lot of shows, you know, like a lot of like, like a lot of like laugh tracks for years was that. And that's like, I remember as a kid watching the Brady Bunch.
It became like the Wilhelm scream of laughter.
Oh, Brady Bunch, you could hear that. There was always at one point you'd hear this woman go, "Ah," in the laughter. They go, "Ha ha ha ha." And I was like, that's funny. Why is that woman always doing that? And then I'm like, little Andrew brain's like, she's paid to do that.
Well, and I don't think I think we as humans crave that dynamic enough that right now we're in a backlash against it because we don't want to feel duped or faked or what have you. But if something were algorithmically able to, we had some kind of psychological anchor to know that it's like, well, this is based on some number of people reacting in the moment they're live. I think we could do some mental gymnastics and be okay with it.
Maybe, but remember too that laugh tracks sort of hide bad comedy because you get spaces, you do less jokes. And because you do a joke, because with laugh tracks, you have to stop to let the moment for the laughter fade, and then the next joke and the next joke. And when you don't have laugh tracks, it tends to be more rapid fire. You know, it's bump, 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 bump. And you can kind of keep, and I think that, I just know for me, like when I watch shows that have laugh tracks, like the last show that I think I liked with that was probably like Seinfeld, but I would bet that it wouldn't be hard to make Seinfeld work without a laugh track.
Yeah, the middle ground is, and I'm glad that they've largely fixed it, but like watching Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, there was the first few episodes without an audience. He was definitely waiting the same amount of time for where the laughs were supposed to go, and I didn't care for it at all. And he eventually kind of adjusted the pacing so that he moves punchier. It feels a little bit closer to, you know, a YouTube think piece or whatever. But I don't know that it's better without the live audience, you know, because...
Well, that you may just be addressing a point about the quality too, because, you know, that's one of the things too. It's like when you go watch a taping of, let's say, like an Ellen or something like this, they have an audience manager who gets out there in front of it and gets that audience worked up into a frenzy, right? So, because and it's got absurd now too, because like everybody gets a standing, you know, every host gets a standing ovation when they come out on the stage, like they're Pavarotti. It just becomes ridiculous. And if you're separated from that, you look at this and like, this just looks stupid and silly. because this is just manufactured hype to make me excited about something that's not as funny. And you take some of those people, some of those late night show hosts who are now having to work without the cued audience, without the audience with the applause sign and somebody pumping them to do this sort of stuff. And they're not as funny as a lot of other people who have podcasts and TV and YouTube channels.
Yeah, well, and I think we 100% agree. And I think what I'm saying is like let's say one of the most egregious examples I could think of is seeing like the Wendy Williams show, where all I know of that show, because I never hear the audio on, is that there's a good 5 minutes of her walking out and have everyone clap to her. And so I don't know that show is made any better absent that 5 minutes of everyone clapping for her.
Yeah.
So I understand the value of something being in there.
Mm-hmm. And then there's also like filmed in from a live studio audience, which would be different than a laugh track, right? Like,
well, they unless they say it, they usually sweeten it.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and also I think oftentimes to the benefit of the story. We've talked before about when the last time I did the Tonight Show, the bit I did ended on a confusing enough note that in the moment it felt awkward, but they sweetened it by letting everyone at home know, no, that was the joke. That was the whole bit, was that he was supposed to look like he stabbed himself in the hand. So in that regard, I'm very thankful for the sweetening. And I think, so I guess what I'm coming to is, how are we going to sweeten in a post-COVID age?
Yeah, I mean, because like talking about Wendy Williams, right? Like she, as far as I know, they just like film her hanging out every day, and it looks really sad.
Oh, is that what they're doing now, or what they always did?
I've seen a couple of clips, and it looks very sad.
Yeah.
But it could, it's a daily talk show. I don't know. I don't even watch it when it was already on. I don't know what it looks like. But there's.
I'm gonna be curious. I'm gonna be curious to see like what this hybrid is. Like once the talent and the crew are allowed back in to shoot it. Right. And let's assume that everything is appropriately socially distanced, and that's fine. There's a standard of health that they can meet, but there's no way you can have an audience, and you certainly can't have an audience with people that are as close to each other with the normal kind of volume. Everyone's gonna have to evolve. Everyone's gonna have to kind of adjust their show a little bit. I'm curious.
I think we're gonna go through a phase where stuff will look an awful lot like The Soup or some of the early tech TV programming.
I was just gonna say I like The Soup, and you hear the staff laughing.
Yeah,
that's somehow feels.
I want my job. I want to keep my job.
Well, no, but at
but
least,
it feels intimate in a weird way.
Yeah, and then maybe you add the idea that maybe we get a little bit more podcasty, where there's a couple of people with soundboards, to where when something does get funny, they give a bam 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 or whatever. It's like. Granted, we're only dealing. I think that there's
people. It really depends on the show, right? Like what is the energy you want to have? Like for Wendy Williams, it is your like sassy friend who's gonna say that thing that she shouldn't. Like, and so like, what is the best version of that? Like The Soup was great because even going back to like the like Greg Kinnear, John Henson version of that, there was this. It was really kind of born of this like slacker Gen X ethos of like, like we all, like, let's be honest, we all watched these shows during the day because we don't have a job. So let's make fun of it. And that was when it was more about the Sally Jesse Raphaels and the Springers of the world. As soon as reality television came out, there was like a different, it was a little bit less, hey, we're all obviously unemployed, and more, hey, we're all obviously attracted to reality television. Let's join in. So there's an element of outcast built, just baked into that bread that makes the self, poking at the host, poking at like, hey, we don't have a live audience, we only have our staff. Like that, like plays into it. But I think everyone's going to have to think about that. Like The Soup had to think about that because they didn't have people. So it's like, how do we make, this seem as big and fun as possible? And I think everyone's going to have to do it, which is rad. Yep. Son of a bitch.
Hey, everybody.
I'm pretty sure I'm the only one without a laugh track here. God damn it.
I want the Olsen twins. Isn't that what he said? Cute.
Or spicy kiss. Ooh.
Oh,
No,
I put
that
the
was my
turtle
favorite.
in the microwave.
One of the only Family Guy joke that I remember is that they were doing is one of those cutaways of like all your favorite laugh track sounds. And so it was like laughter, like, you know, a child does something adorable. Then there was like kiss, woo, ethnic kiss, woo. But it was just like,
when did Family Guy start
for whatever
doing
reason,
jokes?
the kisses were always louder. The reactions were always louder on Martin than they were on Step by Step.
Yeah.
Yeah, Step by Step. Yeah.
Joni loves Chachi. Gentlemen, one of your picks?
Yeah, man, I got a weird one. I'm watching a 6-hour playthrough of The Last of Us, the video game for the PlayStation. We're about an hour in. Spoiler alert, at some point, a guy finds out that there's a person who is special and needs to be taken to a place far away. That's as far as we are. If you've never seen it, give yourself the first 20 minutes because it is one of the most powerful opening 20-minute anythings in any narrative anything that I've experienced. You played through this, right, Bryce?
Yeah, it's been a while. But I might watch this because I think that they have a new date for Last of Us, and I think that's in June.
Yeah, they also do a trick where you begin thinking, oh, these must be the characters I play, and then they're not, and a lot of time passes, and it's a fairly stark, bold, terrifying, amazing thing. Probably doesn't help that it takes place literally in Southwest Austin, and that I recognize some of the roads that they're driving on. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and we've talked about watching movie cuts of games before, like Last of Us, which is already this big cinematic narrative game, like works perfectly for it. I remember after playing it, when you play it, you could unlock the cutscenes, and they had a mode where you could just play all the cutscenes, and I always wanted to go back and see, well, does that tell the whole story? Could you just do that again?
Yeah, this the version I'm watching is the one you pulled up. It's about 6 hours long, something marathon version. So there's a little bit of gameplay happening, but it's when people are sort of whispering significant plot points about, you know, whether it's the way the bad guys work or, you know, how the cover dynamics work, that kind of stuff.
At a brief glance, this 6-hour one is 2 or 3 times longer than many of the other ones I found. So if that's too long, there are even some shorter ones out there for you.
It's fascinating that the budgets for video games now, like big ones like this, will surpass motion pictures. And there's enough ancillary content in the production of this thing to have 6 hours of this whatever. And it is this sort of thing. Like, I think once we get a grip on what aspects of narrative storytelling that can come from video games that can work in that way, whatever, of like, you know, the next time, you know, we launch some big, huge video game sort of franchise, the idea that almost, you know, default is like, oh yeah, and this will be the Netflix series, whatever that comes out of it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're going to do that for HBO or The Last of Us.
Yeah,
right. That was announced a month or so ago that they're going. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Nice.
It's insane.
Justin, you got a pick?
Yeah, it's finished now. The Last Dance, ESPN's 10-episode documentary about the Bulls team of 1997 or 98, but more specifically about just that entire group. Most notably, of course, Michael Jordan. It goes back in time. Let me just say this. I'm glad that this came out now, because in a world without entertainment, this was a great communal experience and obviously did gigantic numbers on ESPN. If it had come out in a world where everything existed, I feel like it would have been criticized for being overstretched. And I do think it would have been an incredible 5 episodes. Instead, it's a very luxurious 10, some of which are far more interesting than others.
Yeah, I only made it. I started watching it last night and made it almost to the end of the first episode, and it was just so steeped in remember when or taking me back there that it felt just enough like work that I am sure there's payoffs down the road, but I ended up watching someone play a video game instead for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, the first, and that's funny because the first episode is supposed to be there to bring people who are not super dialed in on these stories already in, which I just like. Man, there are some themes that if you tightened everything up and you made it just about Michael Jordan and you made it just about this season and made it ground it far more in the season, you could have done something explosive, but it's 10 episodes because they got paid to do 10 episodes, and that is what it is.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I got a pick. I think I certainly talked about this when it came out, but I finally finished it, and I'm glad I did. I was already enjoying it, and then watching the last episode, I enjoyed it much, much more. That is the Netflix Duncan Trussell and Pendleton Ward show, The Midnight Gospel.
Oh, we haven't really talked about chapter 2 of all this because you had just started it and I was begrudgingly watching it, and then there came one episode that I think both of us just needed to take a moment after.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it because I think the whole build up to it is very important, but I will say, like, as someone who really enjoyed the show, I was even heightened by the thing that it does near the end of that show, and I think it's very, not a lot of people are able to do that and have the thing that they have in there. So I think it is.
I've not been able to watch another episode since then because I watched that one twice and I've held it and thought about it quite a bit, and there'll be a time that I'll turn on and watch more, but to see that, to go from a place of, episode 2, we're annoyed by this Arkansas, magic philosopher, whatever, to where we end up. It ended up being very, very powerful. I think it's very worthy.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah. What's up?
Yeah, Mike. So I tried. I got like 10 minutes into the first episode, and I'm like, "What is this? Like an effing podcast that's been animated?" I'm listening to Dr. Drew go on about the psychological benefits of marijuana, and I'm like, I think, do I need to be high to watch this? Because I'm like old man here, not getting it.
Well, and it is a podcast that's been animated. And
there we go.
And so, and I enjoyed that part of it. I really enjoyed, that gives it a very different tone and a very dense tone that even with like adult animation now we don't see as much of. And I think it's really cool seeing all these different viewpoints and perspectives. But I definitely, the first couple of episodes before I realized that is what it was, which were these old podcasts that had been reshaped into fitting into these animated stories and these visual stories. Like, I was bewildered at what the proposition was. But I think it's worth.
Is the one with his mom the last one of all of them? Is that the ending?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess I did see the entire run. Man, what an ending! What an ending!
Yeah. And it's for only being eight half-hour episodes, I wouldn't necessarily say it's an easy watch because it's very dense and because it's very visual. But it's objectively speaking, relatively quick.
I'll definitely give it another shot. Because I just was like, I'm looking for some more fun animated kind of thing. I'm like, I want something kind of fun. And it's like, my sort of my curious to hear what you guys think of at this point. But I'm 3 episodes into Solar Opposites, and what a dark bean show. This is it's just I don't know who I'm supposed to like here.
Oh, you're having trouble with Solar Opposites?
Nobody's likable. They're all awful. They're all it's just people murdered left and right. It's just sort of the murder joke just for the murder joke kind of thing.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, to me, I'm like, I'll keep watching it, but I'm like, just like, I don't know. It's like those sense of repercussions or whatever. And I just sort of feel like it's just kind of going more for, I think Roiland's a genius. And so I can't begin to comprehend, and I'm maybe not sophisticated enough, but I'm like, man, like, just like a lot of throat slashing and people just being murdered for kind of just as a punchline. Like,
Which is weird because I feel like that show goes out of its way. We're getting off topic here, but I feel like that show goes out of its way to like also try to revive dead people or like dead meaningless characters in a very kind of weird way.
I will say that I anticipate you will the majority of your experience with Midnight Gospel you will actively dislike, but I went through that, and the moments it lands powerfully enough that I'm glad for have watched the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I like to see people doing something new and different stuff. I want to see it. Like I will make my way through Solar Opposites, even though I'm like, Corvo, as I like to say, 2/3 Rick, got another plan kind of thing. And it's hard to shake the thing that it's so emulative, it's so reminds you of, because so much of it comes from there, but then it's missing, part of, I think, the heart of the other thing. But with Midnight Gospel, I will go back and try a thing again and again to get into it, because I want to see the value I didn't see before. And often I'm surprised and delighted.
Yeah. And it's not, I think, Brian, I mean, I would not call it comedy. It's not
Midnight Gospel.
Funny. Yeah.
Well,
it's not haha funny.
No. No. It's a podcast. If also in the background, the movie Heavy Metal happened to be on, and you notice times things seem to line up. That's what it is.
Yeah. So, do you have a pick, Andrew?
My pick is sort of basically like, do check out Solar Opposites. Curious to see other people's take on it. I'm there's a lot of brilliance, and one of the things that I think that, like, we talked about this before on Rick and Morty, storytelling aside, technically what's going on in animation, these things is fantastic. You go back and you watch the episode last week, it was just incredible from a technical point of view, the quality of the animation, all the things going on, etc. And so that's one of the things I do appreciate, is just how really good the technical part of animation can be right now.
Yeah. I finished Solar Opposites last week. I really dig it. It's definitely lighter fare than Rick and Morty. It is more in the vein of a Family Guy or an American Dad rather than, say, an Adult Swim show. But I thought it was nice and light in a nice way. I don't know, and I kind of like the other alien, the Terry. I kind of thought he was likable.
Yeah, they're just not. It is not interesting. I guess that's just sort of my thing. Is that it's just that at this point, and I'm going to give it a shot, because like I know my first takes are often completely opposite, and I will go back again, and because I get stuck with the thing in my head and not the thing that's in front of me.
Cool,
gentlemen. It's been weird. And in case you're listening to our headless version of this podcast, it's been very peculiar. That's how we rebrand
Headless
it for the Canadian
podcast.
audience. Yes.
awesome. All right, you guys need to take a break, and we'll do a quick.
Yeah. I'll grab a soda. I'll be right back.
Yeah, me too. Diet Coke.
Go for it.
Cool. I'll stay here.
What's
I'll
up,
stay here
Justin?
with Bryce.
What's
up, fam?
So how was your weekend? You got the COVID test today. Did you do
I
anything
did
fun?
this morning. Yeah.
Was there a long line? A lot of people doing it?
No, I had an appointment. It was mostly drive up. But I walked up, and I just went over and swiped it, and that was that. Here, I can send you the video.
Fair. Yeah, I like that we have pickup options now. I think curbside is something that not every place has figured out. I'm gonna go to the grocery store and I text the number and they come out to my car. I ordered like a burger the other day, and they were like, okay, cool. When you get here, just call us and tell us what car you have, and we'll bring it out to you. And at
Oh,
that
really?
point, yeah, and at that point, like, I'll just walk inside because you have to wait. I have to wait for you to make my fries anyway, so I'll just walk inside. There's nobody else in here. So I think that it's weird that we're finding like a new level with curbside stuff.
Yeah, I think people are just figuring out kind of what the market demand is, but the big thing that I think's happened over the last few weeks is that people are kind of realizing that no matter what, this is just gonna be an option. Like, people are going to want to do this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the government says everything's open, unlimited, everybody, let's all go and hang out at the football stadium. Like, there's going to be people that will want to take advantage of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think that there's going to be a lot of innovation that comes out of this. There's going to be different ways that people are kind of served, and not only from that perspective, but also from a legal perspective. Like, a lot of the things that are happening now, like, there's a lot of these alcohol laws that are repealed now. So restaurants are going to be able to continue to make money during this scenario, and they're able to like sell liquor in a way that they wouldn't otherwise. And to be totally honest, the fabric of society, at least in terms of that front, has not ended. These are smart things. There's a lot of like kind of like law repeals that are happening that I would be very excited if they were made permanent.
Yeah, like the little burger place out here where I'll get burgers between the shows, like because they had a beer and wine option. They've started doing the takeaway alcohol stuff. I think you do have to buy food to be able to get it.
Buying food is still a thing. We actually there's a tiki place around the corner from us, and we got tiki drinks, and it was like they said that each one was like a two, each bottle that they were sending were 2 servings. And initially it didn't look like it. It looked like it was just one regular bottle, but then you realize that you don't need a lot of tiki drink if you're pouring it over ice.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. It was great. It was, and we ordered 2 bottles of it and crinkle cut fries, and it was delivered.
That's a good night.
And
tiki drinks and crinkle cut fries. That's a recipe for success.
It was great. Actually, no, you want to know what we did do over the weekend that was fun? If you go on my Instagram, you should see we went for a stroll around the lake.
Oh, I did.
Lake Merritt.
Yeah. So so this was from the tweets that you sent. I thought that this was you and Ashley, but this is something you two saw.
No, this was us.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Walking around Lake Merritt
No, we only got that video because when we were on the way back, we ran into people who wanted to take their picture with us. And when I asked them to send me the picture, because we had no outside photography of us, they had previous in the day recorded us walking.
That's good.
But yeah, Ashley thought it would be a fun way to just kind of bring joy to the lake, and indeed it did. We were celebrities.
That's so cute.
I didn't know that was you. That's hilarious.
Justin, do you need to go grab a bev?
Yeah. Let me do that real quick.
Go for it. That's so fun.
Don't go to the lake. There are dinosaurs there.
Yeah, it's one of the Justin's comment on that. They do move in herds.
Yeah.
I had a moment last night. So I bought this new virtual instrument, a VST, for my my music making program, and I guess it's a relatively recently made VST, so it was only available in 64-bit, right? And I guess I had just never put together that all of my plugins and my software was 32-bit. I just had been using that the whole time, been using it for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
And found out that the program that Ableton Live, what I use, doesn't do this thing that they call bridging, where they will let you open a 32-bit plugin in the 64-bit thing.
Oh shoot! So now you're speaking Spanish and you don't have a
and I've
a
only had
bridge.
French books, and so a good number of things I had the 64-bit version of it. Maybe like all of the stuff I've bought before. I've bought other big name synths, and so those all work. And a couple of the free ones that I use, but I'm bummed because I had I had built up a collection over the years and of getting them, and a lot of them, like they were open source and discontinued, and they never made a 64-bit version or whatnot. And so I'm on the hunt. If you know any good freeware that are 64-bit, please let me know. And then everyone on Twitter, I was complaining about this on Twitter, and everyone was like, your software doesn't do bridging? I'm like, no, it doesn't do bridging. It just said
What a
wasn't right.
fool.
I know.
What a God.
Goofed. But now I have the 64-bit version of Ableton. So
Yeah, that was one of the Bryce tweets. I'm like, I think I know this something about something.
but I know enough music people follow me where I wouldn't be completely tweeting into the void about it.
Yeah.
All right, you guys want to do a quick after things here?
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, then let me count you in. Go over this for a sec. All right, let's start after things in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to After Things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young,
Hello.
Mr. Brian Brushwood,
Hello.
and Bryce the Legend Castillo.
Hello, it's me, the legend.
The
The
legend.
Ledge Man.
Oh my God, we're so glad you're here. Tell me, do the ledge wars, do they continue on the fringes of society?
The legend wars never end,
Oh my God.
Wow, man. I always know that the legend's here when he moves his hands up and down like Frankenstein.
It's when there's no wind, I have to create the wind effect myself.
Can I just say though, Bryce, your range, like if we shipped you off to England to like one of those fancy English acting schools where you get to learn how to talk like Hugh Laurie and anything else like this, I think you'd come back, and you could have, ha ha, my Patrick Stewart voice.
Yeah. Oh yes. Very space cross.
Space Cross. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Space Cross.
I want to talk about something. I think we may have mentioned this before, but did we talk about the website This Fursona Does Not Exist?
No. We've talked about like this person doesn't exist.
And I think we've even talked about this waifu does not exist.
I think we talked about these feet do not exist.
Yeah.
Foot fetishists.
I think we didn't, because I remember I remember wanting to really talk about that, and I think we did. But,
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh,
wow, it's a furry version.
right on.
So we're looking at all of these different sort of like furry sort of avatars. And what they did is it uses we've talked about these before, generative adversarial networks, which is basically you take a system that's trained to recognize certain things, in this case, like animal faces, and then you take a randomizer and you give it feedback. And basically it starts spitting out images that never existed before. We've done this with people and the other stuff we mentioned. This does this with furry avatars in a variety of different styles.
I mean, that one looks an awful lot like Robin Hood.
Oh, see, I thought
No, that one. No, that looks like Zootopia.
Nick, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that brings up the issue here is that they trained this using a data set. I forget from what some website where people had created, their own personas, and they used the group who did this just used the data to train the neural network. And some of the things spitting out here look very similar to things that have been created by other people, but not identical. And it's bringing up the concept of, there's a term I just heard, kind of like, generative art or generative media, the idea of stuff that's generated from AI. And what is the copyright on this? What happens from here?
That's an interesting idea, because I think what happens is the strand of evidence begins to matter, right? Where it's like so many of the stories of copyright violation have been reduced down to, well, tell us the story of how you made this song. Sounds to me like you definitely heard this other song and then ripped it off. Judgment is against you. And then other people are like, well, I had a dream and this is the way I try to write. And then, and then if it's a better story, then it's like you are forgiven or whatever. But I suspect that a lot of people will be able to hide behind, like, there's literally no way I could have copied a thing because I said, please summon me a fox with 5 red spots.
Well, 2 things. One is, often in copyright, though, you have to specifically copy the lyrics or, let's say, the melodies. And if it's 1 or 2 bit different, then it makes it harder to get. And that's why those decisions land all over the place.
Unless we're talking about blurred lines, which for some reason you copied.
But that was very notable in how far it extended beyond.
Correct.
Like
yes,
that is definitely
that was a bad decision.
In fact,
yes.
Yeah, and you could look at the notation, the musical notation, and see this is the same notation that was used from this other thing. Versus sound alike is an entire industry where it's just, no, we just changed that part and we're close enough.
But then on the flip side, there's Come Together, in which case, what's the difference between riffing on a thing, like giving a tip of the hat, like, hey, I'm saying that thing that's the beginning of another song, Here Come Old Flat Top, but then it's like, well, are you acknowledging it and tipping your hat to it, or are you just using it in a different song?
Yeah, and it's always, whenever you hear about cases going up there, when it gets beyond just clearly like sampling 30 seconds of something, and that's been like, there's some areas where you go, oh yeah, that's easy, we know, you can pretty much predict where the judgment's going to fall here, and that was like blurred lines, because it was a pretty clear case of like, as I understood it, like, yeah, no, this is literally like this whole sequence and stuff. Where other things where it gets to be, the Stairway to Heaven, where you're like, oh, well, who said this? It's like, well, this is a lot like Taurus or whatever, this band. Like, yeah, but it's also like this band that was there 10 years before and stuff. Here, the problem gets into is neural networks are a black box. If you could say, yeah, I went and I had this thing created and the box did it. But if if it was trained on those original images?
Well, and if you don't give it enough imagery, right, then you would have to assume it would give you very, very similar. If, say, instead of giving it, thousands of images, you gave it tens of images, it would probably look pretty similar to those 10 copyrighted works.
Yeah, and like if I built one, let's say I only trained it on Jack Kirby drawings, and it gave me original, new illustrations, new drawings. I, as an artist, I can draw. If I could draw like Jack Kirby, I could do it. I could publish comics as long as I'm not copying his verbatim, not copying his actual drawings. But if I'd say I'm going to draw it like him and do this like him, legal. And so that gets into the whole, where does this go from here?
What's interesting? You brought up the Dark Side of the Moon and Taurus case. I was looking that up for undisclosed reasons. And
Stairway to Heaven.
Or Stairway to Heaven, excuse me. The most recent ruling was that that it wasn't infringement, and the court made this precedent that you actually they said we used to judge how likely it was you heard a song before you recorded it, and gave it in the inverse proportional rule, where it was more likely you heard it, you have a much higher bar. I think they did away with that almost completely via precedent, because content is so ubiquitous now. So you are just bombarded on, like, as humans, just human beings having copyright issues, you're just bombarded with so much stimulus that it's very difficult to, I don't know, try to say, well, you saw my thing, so obviously you did it. But then when it becomes, I guess the flip side is machine learning, where you are definitely giving it someone else's work.
Or, I mean,
well,
I guess one step farther is you allowed it to go find work, and it finds a style, and you're not the one that caused it to dial in on late 60s cheap Fender guitars, garage era music, but then it comes back with, I got this great idea, this pitch.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we also sort of have to differentiate too between something that does something in the style of, or something when it kind of directly emulates it. And these things are incredible at emulating style. And like I said before, like I can create, my own cover band and write my own songs based on, inspired by Kiss or whatever like this. And I can do, can't do their same makeup because they can copyright that, but I can do my own songs, sound like them, do as much as I want to sort of do this. And there have been people who've tried to sort of copyright a certain kind of define a sound or look, and it's hard because it gets to be nebulous. And really, you're kind of left with, we can copyright the words, and if you can, if you can put the music into a chart notation, you can copyright that. But beyond that is when it gets hard. And I think here we're getting in this area where you could build things that are, I could, sample Brian's voice, and then I'm going to do my podcast using Brian's voice.
Yeah, and
although by the way, and I don't want to go back to too far into the blurred lines thing, but that was the blurred line. Blurred lines was not identical to Gotta Give It Up. It had a similar groove and it had similar spacing, but the chart notation was not identical, and that was where we started to get into new territory that is fairly widely criticized as being overreaching in terms of that settlement.
Which to go back even farther, reminds me, it sounds to me even closer to the Dennis Leary, Bill Hicks similarities, where Bill Hicks was a transformative comedian in the late 80s, early 90s who died of cancer. And then suddenly, with a lot of similar bits, a lot of similar attitudes, you have Dennis Leary. I don't know what the right answer is in terms of recompense to the aggrieved party, who the aggrieved party would be, and whether or not if comedy is better off for somebody else picking up the mantle or not.
Well, I mean, in that case, it's like, look, I think that's more of a comics code thing of like, all right, like
Gentleman's
how
rules.
much are you a good or bad person for taking things, or how much are you doing an impression versus your own stuff? In terms of the market, people were hungry for Hicks, and Hicks wasn't there. So the next best thing stepped up and capitalized on it and became a bigger star than Hicks was. May not be as talented or as revered amongst his peers, but certainly, was, he took that market demand and fed it.
So, Andrew, if there was, say, one of these GAN models that was based only on your writing, how would you feel about the publication of a work generated using only your content as the source?
And a whole genre of Andrew Main type books.
Yeah, it would be frustrating because you would find yourself competing with yourself. And the hard part too would be that if somebody wanted to say, if somebody wanted to, the way the rule of thumb, if somebody decided to, read everything I wrote and then write like me, which is actually something writers will often start doing, is that there are, Kevin J. Anderson, who's a very prolific writer. One of the things that Kevin J. Anderson is exceptionally good at is at doing the voices of other writers. And there are some writers who actually, he could, when he can pick up like a series, he could write, like he could do Edgar Rice Burroughs or whatever. He's very capable of doing that sort of thing and picking this up. And that's a skill some writers have. And that's why some writers make a living as ghostwriters too, is because they can read somebody else's books, then go in and write in that voice. And there are, when Stephen King was super popular, you start looking at a lot of stuff that came around that time, and you realized a lot of writers tried to adapt and sort of do that. And you see that anytime something's very popular, people try to emulate it. An AI trained on me to do this would be the most efficient mimic ever. I would personally, I assume that's going to happen. I assume, and not necessarily that it's going to be, me per se, but I think that you train something on me or better writers or whatever, and you're going to get stuff that's going to come out that will be really well done, better than maybe I could do. And I've been in positions before where, like, having created magic, and then there's sometimes people would copy the move for move my explanation and put it on YouTube, which I consider that, a violation, where they just literally redid my video, which is, that, and the choreographic works are protected under copyright, and that's established. It was another thing where somebody says, well, I'm going to explain how this thing works, which aggravated me, but they can do that. And I never had a problem with that. I was never going to try to stop that, because I think from a legal point of view, no, they're right to do that. And I would say that I would be personally frustrated if all of a sudden I saw like, oh, Bryce Castillo, AI writing in the style of Andrew Main. Hey, it's the world. I mean, we've established law. Like, you look at all the porn parodies that use licensed characters. Like, it's pretty much just, if you say parody, you say this, whatever. And I'm going to say that, like, yeah, I'm going to be on the other side of this, not benefiting me. But I don't really want to be in a world where we say, no, you can't do this, because also, let's say you just tell people that it's a style that you do, and you don't tell us you use AI. How would I know?
Yeah. Definitely not a thriller written by Andrew Main.
From Parody Publishing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, it would not benefit me. But I would have to say yes, but I'm okay with it. Like, there's a lot of times and stuff, I watch the advance of technology. I go, oh yeah, this is going to make my life more difficult, but ethically or legally, legal to do this. So
yeah. So, similar question, say for you, Brian, right? Like, someone takes the all the recorded footage of you and makes a voice a voice synthesis text to speech thing of your voice and starts putting up, say, podcasts with your voice. How would you feel in that? It's hypothetical, right? But
yeah, I would be less threatened by that, partly because I suspect the market for people who want a robot version of my voice in their head is smaller than one would expect. However, we were talking today where it's like, if you were in a foreign market, you could take the 800 plus episodes of Scam School, Scam Nation and just redo them. And I'm not sure that I would have much recourse. I suppose I could point out the similarities and the types of shots and all that stuff, in which case, just change the shots of them or whatever, because
you're talking about a whole production redoing.
Yeah.
Not taking the original.
So you would say,
recordings.
you would say, this is in Russia or China or something like that they could literally just take everything that you did and redo it as in their best facsimile.
Right.
And
which
what are you going to do?
Which we have in authentic ways. For example, I mean, The Office was a UK original that came to the United States, and we redid it pretty much following it. We found our own way or whatever. Same thing. Breaking Bad has since gone to Latin America, and it's pretty much just Breaking Bad re-recorded from scratch. Those are cases where I assume some amount of money was exchanged.
They're official adaptations.
Yeah. So I don't know what it would look like an unofficial or without permission. There's kind of some handshake agreements. We have some fans in Russia who love Modern Rogue, and we have a handshake agreement of what all they want to do is just record voiceovers to translate our stuff to Russian. And they do it because they love it. And as far as I know, they're not rolling in bank, and there's no pie for us to argue about splitting up. But what a great situation that'd be if we ended up there.
Same question to you, Justin. Right? Someone takes your voice and makes a political podcast. How do you feel about that?
I'd see how good the tech is, because it's a lot cheaper than a guest host. So like sometimes I might need to go on vacation. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I would suspect, as Brian, that there is less of an issue, because it's not like there's a tremendous barrier to entry for our content now. It's free content now. But also, if one of the market demands is, oh, okay, well, one podcast is good, but it would be better if you were doing 5 little podcasts, so I was always up to date on what the opinion was, then that could offer that. I don't know. I mean, it would be annoying if it were eroding the core business, but otherwise, I have no idea what market demand it would want to fill.
All right, cool.
Like, Andrews is a little bit more of a clear-cut case, because like it could erode a brand that ends in a financial transaction, whereas for Brian, it would really have to degrade his ability to sell advertising on Scam Stuff or Modern Rogue. or for me, it would have to erode the faith in my Patreon that people would not want to be less likely to support me directly.
I think that the hopeful part is that the technology, some of the from the technology point of view, is that you would make it easier for Brian, for you and Jason to make a different version of, because like there's technology right now that will translate your voice into another language and then will match the lips, will adjust the lips as you speak to that language. So you could release the Russian version of this eventually at some point, where you guys are going to be speaking Russian and you're sounding like you're fluent, and also trained on your voice. So it will be you with a Russian, with your voice with a Russian accent, and the lips will move in sequence. And that's kind of a fascinating sort of thing, is where that goes.
I do think that is totally fascinating. I also feel like the moment that starts to get used, it totally ceases to be novel, and people discount it like, oh, this is one of those dub subs or whatever.
Even if it means that they get, say, native audio in lieu of like just subtitles on YouTube.
Yeah, like I think for example, what was it? All You Need Is Kill became Edge of Tomorrow. I know here in America, more people paid attention to Edge of Tomorrow, the thing that was a complete retelling of that story, just with American actors doing American stuff, and not just a redub of that popular anime.
Interesting.
But we watch all the time around the world. People watch things, cartoons and other things, dubbed with local people. More people have watched Toy Story in a language other than English than people have watched it in English.
That's true. And maybe I'm suffering from the bias of knowing that we are one of the larger exporters of that type of content than importers. So it's hard. And maybe I have a blind spot for the potential of importing.
Mm-hmm. I know that, like, I watched, was it Ragnarok? That was okay, but it was not Netflix. It's the Norwegian show about this young kid who's modern day times, sort of a retelling of Norse mythology, and they did the dubbing, and it was good enough dubbing, and I preferred that dubbing to reading subtitles, and I would like it to be even better
too. Like I found, like I watched Omniscient a couple months back, which is a Brazilian sci-fi show, and I much preferred hearing it in English, even though it probably was, when you have to translate something for visuals, you have to adjust the script in certain ways. But I preferred that over the subtitles for something like that. I don't know.
Well, the technology's gotten better. They're not using the AI lip thing yet, but they're using much better sort of technology to make it match and fit and stuff. So that helps. And so I think that, I don't know, I'm excited about the potential where, you could make versions that could be different versions of stuff, but also comes with, though, that the market for, the Brian Brushwood version of something like this is, you don't know. You don't know what it is, and it could be more than we realize, or it could be a small group of just 1,000 people, but love to watch, want to watch Home Improvement, where it's Brian.
Yeah, well, and I do believe there is potential for there. I suppose, but the only caveat I want to inject is, once it's a known thing, much like the laugh track, we were previously talking about how once there's such a thing as a laugh track, that alters your understanding of this piece of content that you're watching. Once you know that, Brian did not bother to put on makeup and play 35 different characters, all to create a one Brian person of a show, it that somehow affects the novelty of watching Brian play everyone.
But if it's useful,
but I think that.
Oh no, go ahead, Andrew.
But I think at that point, Brian becomes an animator. We think of Brian in the same way that we do, Seth MacFarlane, or Dan Royal or Dan Harmon and Justin Roy. We think of you in that regard, where, oh yeah, some of its voice is based on him. He's the master. He's the Disney of this.
Yeah.
Of this. Walt used to do Mickey Mouse. His other animators did Mickey Mouse better. So then Mickey Mouse, was taken over by other people. Walt was the original Mickey Mouse voice. And then, when other people did Mickey Mouse, didn't really matter. Same with Sesame Street. We've had a lot. I would say that, like the new Kermit, I doesn't really sound like Kermit to me. That's been my biggest issue. I just have to bring that up. I have to say that Kermit doesn't like Kermit anymore.
I was waiting for the compliment, and then I saw your face. I'm like, he's not going to give a compliment.
No, he couldn't. Yeah, you turned
It's the
on
one
that
voice. It's the one time. It's the one time a voice has been taken over by somebody that I go, oh, I don't like. But and like we hear like not every time you hear like Lisa Simpson on The Simpsons is it
Nancy
is it Yardley Smith? Yardley Smith sometimes,
Smith,
or some.
yeah.
And like some of these big budget movies, these animated movies and stuff, Toy Story, stuff like this, very often, like you will get other characters like will be played. They'll be like, oh, we need a line, but we don't want to bring Tom Hanks in. And actually, like in his case, he's got like a brother that will do his voice for him in cases like this.
Wow.
I know I met a comedian that's a white guy that does Eddie Murphy's voice for the Shrek movies when he doesn't want to do a line or whatever. Donkey, sometimes it's Eddie Murphy, sometimes it's not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Happens way, way, way more often than people realize. That was like remember in The Simpsons.
I don't think I'm talking too far out of school. I knew one of the donkey performers at Universal, and there was sort of like there's a
The
hierarchy.
Shrek donkey, not that.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But sort of the dominant, most donkey performer, not black, but bunch of black people who aspired to reach the level of white official donkey.
Talking about like the loss of novelty, if it's something where, like in these cases where it's useful and invisible, or mostly invisible in terms of like localization stuff, like I don't know. I think it stops being like a press release big to do, and it turns into like it just happens invisibly around you.
Yeah, I like it when John Williams is conducting, but I don't really know that I know when John Williams is conducting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Man,
Cool.
copyright stuff, that's complicated. You know what's not complicated? Going to patreon.com/weirdthings, supporting this show.
Oh crap! We never did the plug.
We're doing it right now, man.
I mean, it's after things though, so they already are on it. But you can go to patreon.com/weirdthings and support us. Oops.
Good app.
Picks?
I started watching. I have half a pick. I only watched the first half of it. I think we talked about it on one of the programs. Troop Zero, an Amazon original. It's kind of cute and adorable, and I don't know what got me to start watching it, but I enjoyed the first half very much, and I look forward to watching the last half.
Oh, this is the Allison Janney one. The Girl Scout summer camp kind of thing.
Yeah, it takes place in 1977. There's a kid who wants to reach out to the stars, finds out that there's going to be a golden record, and they'd like one of the voices to be a birdie scout, completely unrelated scout troop. So she has to form a birdie scout. Oh, guess what? It's a conniving, backstabbing world, the birdie scout world. So they assign her Troop Zero. And so a ragtag group of people have to get their badges so that they could officially apply to possibly get their voice on the golden record. Wow, I wonder how it'll end.
Is it a movie or a series?
Yeah, it's a single movie. Came out on Amazon Prime.
Cool. Troop Zero. Justin, you got a pick?
I'm still watching Community. Community's good. Started the third season. It's interesting to see them kind of stretch that universe. And I'm kind of I'm fascinated by the Pierce character. Like the fact that it is so close to what kind of publicly is known about Chevy Chase's actual demeanor to like the people around him. Like it's a meta achievement in a show that is meta in and of itself. I can't get over it.
It's just straight up
so
Chevy
amazing.
Chase being Chevy Chase. We bothered to change the name that we call him.
Well, yeah, and even down to the idea that like whenever people need to fall in love with him again, he does a Chevy Chase pratfall. Like that's like the one thing that no matter what a piece of garbage Chevy Chase can be and how many awful stories you either have had experienced personally or heard about him, nobody can resist Chevy Chase falling down on something, and you're just like, there he goes. Like, if only he never talked, he would be the most beloved icon in entertainment. But yeah, it's that and the Abed characters, but are fascinating. I'm curious to see where that goes. Where I guess the third season was that the last one that had Harmon before he got fired?
Yeah.
Did he get fired after the third season?
Yeah, fourth
Right.
season was non-Harmon.
Was the non-Harmon season. So I'm excited to get to the end of this, and then we'll get into the dicey after times.
Yeah. I am just about done with my binge of HBO's The Sopranos. I started this, I don't know, a month or so ago. Very interesting in how, I don't know, the first season feels very like prestige TV, right? You know, we're really trying to say something about modern masculinity and the emerging tech emerging in terms of organized crime. And here in this, no, I just finished the 5th season, and a lot of fighting over the families. You know, it really kind of proceduraled out. But starting the 6th season starts off with a bang, and I'll be interested to see how it unfolds in this final. I guess it was like a 2.5 seasons thing.
I'm very curious to see how you process those seasons.
Yeah.
Because I got some feelings. It's funny that you were less interested the further they got away from Dr. Melfi.
Yeah, I kind of thought his therapist getting a further and further backseat. Every time that, you know, he stopped going to her or whatever, it always felt like, okay, we're gonna spend a few episodes of him kind of being off the leash, and then whenever he came back, especially the first time he comes back, it's very awkward between the two of them. I think once he starts having different feelings about her, I think that's interesting. But otherwise, it was just like a lot of like, here's some Goodfellas stuff. Here's what Goodfellas stuff looks like when you have cell phones.
I mean, and that's the thing, is that so much of the fan base were like, no, I'm here for Goodfellas the series. So can we please get the stupid therapist off the screen? Because every time that she's talking to her, he's not doing some gangster stuff, and I'm here for the gangster stuff. So Melfi was a very divisive character, and it was welcomed by a core element of that audience when it was first airing, that they made it less of a thing. But it's so funny. You might be the first person that I've ever heard being like, this sucks. Bring back Melfi.
It doesn't suck, but it's definitely, you can definitely tell when they introduce her after that first season or so.
No, it becomes more about like the territory and whether am I stepping on this? Should we request a parlay? Like, it becomes a lot more of that element, and less the like, am I a man if I admit that I have feelings?
Yeah.
Let's also shoot someone. The Sopranos.
Bump bump.
Having seen a little bit of what goes on behind the scenes of how stuff gets pitched and what gets greenlit, and, you know, oh, well, the execs here, they want a show that does blank, blank, blank. I could very much see it was like with David Chase, that it's like HBO's like, he's like, I want to do a mob story, modern day. What's the New Jersey mob like now? What's it like now? Let's do a modern sort of, and they're like, yeah, we need another angle on that. You're like, well, you know, Analyze That was a cool movie. You know, the mobster talking to a psychologist, like, we like that idea. You know, let's what's inside his head. Let's have a psychologist character. It's like, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can do that. This is what people want.
Which is funny because that's one of the plot lines at the end of season 6 is, I guess between The Ring and the other Blair Witch, they're like, we should get into horror movies. They're cheap, so we're gonna pitch a horror movie meets a gangster film.
That's some of the best stuff.
They all gang up against Casper.
No, what's the name? What's the name of the screenplay?
Not Cleaver is the name he wants to call it Cleaver. Oh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't remember the other. But
No,
they're in
it's
this
great,
they're
but
in this
that's
pitch meeting with a bunch of other gangsters, and they're like, yeah, so the Butcher of New Jersey, and someone goes, you can't call him the Butcher. There's already the Butcher. You don't want to upset him.
Well, that's a real thing though, and like I can tell you by looking at like the HBO lineup, like I have a very good idea what the network, like they talk about network needs and what they were telling. They're going out to scriptwriter, showrunners and stuff, saying what we're looking for, because you start seeing like, this is the element here, this is this element here, and this is what they just renewed here because that nobody wanted to watch that thing, and they keep bringing this back because somebody's really got an excitable aspect of it. They want a thing, and they keep trying to put a thing there, and showrunners keep trying to make a thing work, and it just I could say more, but I don't want to have the cabal kill me. But you certainly see that. And, and you just sort of like, I always say, like, get past the first couple episodes, because that's when the showrunners are getting noted to death from the executives. That's when they're trying to make it so. And I often I'm trying to watch Avenue Q or Avenue 5 or whatever. Avenue 5, the
HBO Hugh Laurie space thing.
And it's hard to get past this first, because it's just everything's just hitting off. They're doing these camera movements and stuff when people are talking, trying to add intensity, and it's distracting, and the jokes aren't landing. And I'm like, get into the next couple episodes, see if this gets better, because right now this is the pilot. It's a big budget pilot, which means there's a bunch of executives on the set saying, do this, do this, do this.
Yeah.
Because what an amazing cast.
I haven't heard much about it, which has made me not watch it, despite the fact that I love like everything Inucci does is like so up my alley. But I'll get to it.
Yeah. Do you have a pick, Andrew?
My pick is going to be the book I've been reading, and I'll probably mention this again on Weird Things, but this is a pre-pick. I went back to go reread this, and as I started reading it, I realized, they're making this into a TV series right now, and that is Ringworld.
Oh, cool.
You ever read Ringworld?
Nice.
I did. It felt of its time. What, 60s-ish?
70s-ish, I think.
70s, yeah.
So Ringworld is the premise of this explorers. Like I would say that it's actually, to me, like the female characters absolutely are sort of a bit kind of like the 60s sort of female characters, where they're complimented, yet they're kind of there to be pretty and to have sex with the protagonist kind of part. But the idea that Ringworld is about a group of 2 humans and 2 aliens go to explore this ring world, which is unlike a Dyson sphere. It's a ring around an entire star, which is about the surface area of 1 million Earths, and trying to find out who built it, what goes on there, whatever. And so it's kind of an adventure sort of story in that. And it became a series of many novels throughout there that they continued on. And I've actually enjoyed it. I remember rereading it a while ago. I said, let me go back into it and read it again. And it's really kind of one of those sort of the category of stories. It's sort of more about like, let's explore a thing. Let's go take a journey to see what this would be like. And the scientific details are pretty good. I enjoyed that. And it reminded me, like, there's another pick that I didn't get as much attention, but man, a story that I really liked was Eon by Greg Bear. Did you guys ever read that?
I did not.
Yeah, no, I think I might still have your copy.
Yeah, that was another where there's this mysterious, cylindrical shaped meteor or asteroid sort of shows up in Earth orbit, and called the Stone, and we go to investigate what's inside of it. And I have to say that a lot of times, like, to go find out what's inside of something is usually nowhere near as interesting as like the anticipation, like Sphere and I'm big Michael Crichton fan, but to say that it's never as exciting. It was even more interesting, once you find out what was going on inside of it and what this meant.
Oh,
and I won't spoil it. Eon was cool because Eon was written in 1985. And they had a thing where they talk about kind of like the future sort of technology where people talk, and they have like what they described as what we would call emojis pop up from like a necklace or something around you, explaining to show you your emotions and stuff. And I thought that was such, so cool to read something from the 1980s, the idea of enhancing our language with using these symbols.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So
Eon.
That's my pick. If you're not entering Ringworld, check out Eon by Greg Bear. It is like one of my favorite picks for sci-fi stuff.
Cool.
Nice.
Cool. It's been after. Cue the Wendy Williams applause.
yeah.
All right, 20 minutes. I got 20 minutes.
All right. Thank you, everybody,
Yeah,
for
I'm
Gotta
gonna
run
eat
in
food.
and cook food.
listening. We're gonna go.
Bye.
We're gonna get off. They'll go do happy hour.
Gotta
here.
go do coke in the cast party. It's great.